Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to viewers from all over the world. This is the Humanizing Growth Series brought to you by the Institute for Real Growth. The Institute for Real Growth basically has as its purpose to help CMOs and other growth leaders humanize the business growth agenda. And we do that by connecting them to peers, to best practices, and to thought leaders. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this webinar as well. So my name is Frank van den Driest, and I'm super honored to have with me Javier Meza. Javier Meza is the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer for the Coca Cola Company's Sparkling brands. So today we're going to talk about brands. And somebody told me, Frank, you worked for a couple of decades focusing on brand management. And in the Institute, we're almost a year on our way, and we hardly ever hear the word brands. And that's true. So at the same time, I really believe, because the Institute is focused on business growth and humanizing growth, but obviously brands have a very critical and big role to play in that. And today I'm going to start talking about the brand, and then we're going to spend quite a bit of our time talking about managing brands, especially on a global scale. And mind you, Javier manages brands over 207 countries. I don't think there's a lot of brands out there that meet that number. But so with that, Javier, a very warm welcome. And obviously my question is, how are you and where are you?
Thank you, Frank. Good morning, good afternoon in your case, good morning and good evening to everyone listening to us. I am right now in Atlanta. We have the global headquarters of Coca Cola here in Atlanta. And I've been here for the last 12 weeks without traveling, which is my usual normal life. So I'm learning how to go to this new abnormal. I'm not calling this new normal yet. I hope the new normal is going to come when we have a vaccine widely available somewhere next year. We are in this new abnormal, and within that, I'm doing well. My family is safe. We are here and trying to be productive and remain productive as we go. Yeah.
Great, good. So let's talk brand. So let's start with, what does Coca Cola really stand for? And I must say, I have met so many brand leaders that created brand pyramids, brand propellers, brand diamonds, brand keyholes, and what have you. And when I asked, what does the brand stand for? They always first had to take a piece of paper and start reading 12 boxes. Well, I don't believe that's how we should. In the end of the day, I mean, what do we need to think? What do you want people to think about when they think about Coca-Cola?
That's a good point. And to be honest, I believe that Coca-Cola is one of the more simple brands to explain as a marketing people. And I've worked with several brands in several categories, and before Coca-Cola in other companies. Coke is a simple brand. But before going there, something that we need to remind always is there is the Coca Cola Company and there is the Coca Cola brand. Yeah. And of course they are linked, but are not exactly the same. And especially because our vision for the Coca Cola Company is to expand into more categories and expand the portfolio. And we've been doing that. So Coca-Cola brand is still our most important brand, the flagship brand, but we have over 400 brands now across several beverage categories. And that's because the purpose of the company is to refresh the world and make a difference. And we believe that we can do that through the portfolio, and that's why we keep expanding and improving the portfolio, through the sustainability practices, and also to the shared value we create in the economy. And when I started talking to you in the Institute for Real Growth, I realized how much this purpose of refresh the work and make a difference is aligned with the philosophy of humanizing growth. Yeah. Now, the brand, let me move to the brand. The brand is very simple. And we believe in this, what we call the ladder up, maybe that's the propeller, which is there's a product benefit, there's emotional benefit, it is a role we want the brand to play in the world, in society. Yeah. The product benefit is very simple, is the authentic cola taste. We are the paradigm for taste, and especially for cola taste. The refreshment, and the refreshment comes from the carbonation and the taste that is refreshing your mouth. and the energy kick you get when you drink a Coke. You know, we have caffeine, the combination of caffeine, refreshment, and the taste gives you a kick. And that kick puts you in a better mood. The emotional benefit is a mood enhancer. Coca-Cola is a mood enhancer. It's a simple moment that puts you in a better mood. And we believe that when people, human beings, are in a better mood, we are more open to be authentic, to connect to each other, and to remain positive. So at the end of the day, it's that taste, refreshment, energy kick, mood enhancement, authenticity, inclusiveness, positivity. That's the brand.
It's still quite a lot of words. So I'll challenge you to boil it down to 3 words. What are the 3 words?
Optimism.
Yeah.
Upliftment, mood enhancement, upliftment, optimism,
yeah.
Upliftment, and taste.
Great, great, good. Yeah. Hey, and so we have the Coca Cola Company, we have the Coke brand, but we also have a category, and you're responsible for a category of brand, the sparkling brands, right? So is that, I know of Coke, I know of Sprite and Fanta, obviously. How many brands sit in your portfolio?
Oh, globally in the sparkling, we have something around 150 brands, but of course I don't pay attention to 150 brands. I really, my and my team are more focused on the global and regional brands, and that would make something around 12 brands. So we have Coca Cola, Fanta, Sprite, Schweppes, Canada Dry that we manage in certain markets. And we have regional brands like Royal Bliss, which is a brand that we have in Europe trying to expand. It's a brand of mixers. We have other brands like Barks, Thumbs Up in Asia. Yeah, so we have more than a
Is it true? I all of a sudden think of one of the conversations we had. Didn't you once mention me that there's also maybe an ambition for the sparkling or the sparkling group of brands that stand for something? Is that correct?
It's correct. We did that exercise, but I have to admit that it's more an internal exercise, because the more I think and learn how people see brands and categories, it's especially categories, they're blurring. So when I started in this business a couple of years back, 20 years back, soda was very clear. Today you have juices with bubbles. You have teas with bubbles. You have milk with bubbles in Asia. So this clear cut of what is a sparkling or not is not that relevant. I believe that people organize categories in a way that is simple for them. They sometimes categorize healthy drinks and unhealthy drinks. They sometimes categorize caffeinated beverages in Asia. A lot of places does have caffeine or not. So we really don't have a consumer-facing articulation for the category. We stick to the brands when it comes to consumer-facing communication.
Yeah, so indeed. So from your point of view, yes, internally you have let's say an organizing principle, but in the end of the day, you say, well, it's about the product brands and the consumer perception of those. Well, we've talked a lot about purpose. We've talked in our leadership program, of which you are a participant, a lot about that as well. And some way or another, we end up people being confused between the difference between CSR and sustainability and brand's purpose. Now, I have a clear, let's say, definition of both in my mind, but let me ask you, how do you see that? And how do you explain the difference, or if it's the same thing to you, what's your view?
Let me part for a second the brand, and I'll come back to that. Let me start with the company. And, I really like the framework from the United Nations about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. When you see that sustainability in that context is economic, social, environmental. Yeah. So it encompasses the 3 of them. In our case, for the company, the purpose articulates that. So the analogy to that would be our purpose that says, we want to have love brands, sustainable done, for a better shared future across the stakeholders. So we do differentiate between the social and the environmental, but just for organizing, within the sustainability agenda that we have very explicitly stated, we have some pillars. Sugar reduction is one of them, and we can speak more about that if you want. Sugar reduction is one of our areas of focus. The second point is water neutrality and helping with water problems.
Yeah.
Waste packaging and carbon footprint. That would be on the sustainability. On the shared value, of course, there is pillars about our own employees, the right working rights. There's about empowering communities, empowering women, and social justice, of course, that is highly relevant in these moments. So that would be the purpose of the company. The brand has its own purpose that is connected to the purpose of the company, but it's more true to the brand experience that I explained before. So the purpose of the Coca-Cola brand is about lifting the human spirit through authenticity, inclusiveness, and positivity. And that's the whole explanation I did about the brand. They are connected, but it's not exactly the same.
Okay. So, and then you also have, for example, Fanta in the portfolio. So here I'm still not at the stage where I can repeat the purpose of the Coca-Cola brand, but I got what you were saying. So now I put myself in and I guess for the Fanta purpose is then a different one, right?
That's correct. So each one of our core brands, they have its own purpose. That again, its anchor is somehow related to the product experience. Let me explain Fanta. The way we design Fanta, the way we want to build Fanta over time is as this beverage that is playful and is fun and is indulgent, from the shape of the bottle, from the colors of the liquid, from the aromas and taste. So when you drink a Fanta and you drink a Coke, of course, the product experience is different. And Fanta is more colorful and is more variety of flavors. Coca-Cola is just one color, one flavor. So in Fanta, we believe that this triggers a more playful, creative attitude in people. When you drink a Fanta, you are more open to be creative, spontaneous. And we believe that creativity and spontaneity has a role to play in people's life. And we know that. I mean, think current crisis, all of us are already looking for ways of keeping motivated, distracted, relief, because it's very stressful to live the days we're living today. So the purpose of Fanta is more this idea of infusing creativity and spontaneity in everyday life. That's it.
Infusing creativity and spontaneity in everyday life. I'm going to ask my wife, who I just saw struggling with 6 2-liter bottles of Fanta, if she thinks of Fanta about infusing.
But that's a good point, because I think the challenge that we have as marketing people is not to design brands. You need to take that brand design and make it come to life in the marketplace, in experiences for people. Let me give you one example, something I really think walks the talk when it comes to this idea of Fanta as being a creative brand and playful brand. In Asia, we have a program that we repeat now for 2 years, and it's very successful. It's called WTF, what the flavor. It's not what you were thinking, it's what the flavor.
What the flavor, okay.
What the flavor. What we do is we offer for limited time 3-4 different Fanta new flavors without describing the flavor to consumers and even playing. For example, we might launch a orange Fanta that is blue. So people would buy a blue drink and say, well, this is orange. So we play with this idea that you go and try and discover by yourself what WTF, what's the flavor. And that's just a way of giving this playful experience to people.
Okay.
But please tell your wife to keep buying Fanta for whatever reason she's buying. I'm okay with that.
So we're going to encourage and invite our viewers that are here in big numbers, which is really great, to ask you questions as well through the Q&A, and some first have come in. And one asked, so Fanta, Sprite, Coke, let's stick just for simplicity reasons to those three. Do they have different target audiences? Or is your school of thinking more, let's go for mass reach, whoever, we don't have loyal consumers anyway, or they're just responsible for a very small part of consumption. How do you look at that?
Yeah, so they do have different targets for communication and positioning purpose. The reality is, and we track that, the user base is really widespread. In the case of Coca-Cola, that's a challenging brand, because Coca-Cola is a brand that we target with an universal appeal. And that's challenging, because if you want to be relevant with the new generations, having a brand that appeals to the teens and the fathers is not easy. And that requires a lot of well-articulated thinking, not only in the way we communicate, but also the way we activate the market, the brand in the marketplace, in the channels. In the case of Sprite, we target teenagers, and it's more a brand that plays with values of self-confidence and with authenticity and honesty. And that's something that for teenagers is relevant as they are going through that process of becoming adults and defining their self-identity. So self-confidence, that's the key value for Sprite. As I said before, Fanta, the key value is playfulness and spontaneity.
And the target, Fanta?
The target is teens and young adults. But the reality is we like to think that Fanta is for the playful at heart. So this notion that if you remain playful, you don't age, that's something that we wanna communicate with Fanta.
I think let's just look at what's happening. I mean, we are all obviously deeply touched by what's happening in the past few weeks. The stance against racism, the call for more inclusion, for more diversity. You know, if I then think of a brand like Fanta, how do you respond to that without being, you know, doing the obligatory thoughts and prayers on social media for a couple of days and then be quiet mostly? You know, that's not easy, I guess, for a brand like Fanta, or maybe it is.
Yeah, we didn't. I would say you don't. You don't need. And this is very important. Thank you for the question, because I think this is super important. And please don't take this as me trying to criticize other brands. I really respect competition and I really respect other brands. So I'm going to speak about the brands I'm responsible for. During the recent crisis and also during the COVID crisis, the most important question I've been asking myself is, how can we truly help people, community, society? How can we help? And I believe that, to your question, Fanta trying to speak about social justice is not going to help. It's not authentic. It's not what Fanta stands for. There's nothing for Fanta to say about that. Now, Coca-Cola brand and the Coca Cola Company is a different story, because, as I said before, we want to make a difference and refresh the world. And we say that inclusiveness and equality and optimism is a key value of the company and of the brand. Yes, there's a role to play. But we didn't try to go fast and speak. That was not, in fact, we didn't speak for a couple of days. And even internally, there was a good debate about, hey, why are we not speaking? And the answer was, because we are thinking. We are thinking what to do before what to say. And what to do, the way we articulated this is, first of all, and I started by myself, Frank, is we need to learn more and understand better what's at the heart of this issue, right? And then we need to move into, okay, now that we understand and really know what's happening, let's put actions before putting words. And what we did is listen to the internal people, talk to experts outside the organization, so they can guide the actions. We have also put resources to support organizations that are fighting social injustice. And then also we put money to speak. Yes, we use the brand of the Coca-Cola brand, and we came up with some communication that I think is legitimate. But what I'm trying to say is just speaking doesn't help. You need to act. And then on top of that, we are partnered with other organizations to push for some legislation. In the case of Georgia, there is no this hate crime legislation. So we are advocating for that to be approved. So again, Fanta, nothing to do with this. You need to think how to help and make sure you do before you say.
Yeah, well, in my view, it's also really a lot about, and that's maybe not per se to do with brands, but values as a company, but also as a person that you embrace. So I don't know, my own experience was really, we started these webinar series to do, you know, we replaced those COVID lessons learned newsletters that we curated every week. And then, well, we acted fast and we reached out to our network, and you've seen the first speakers. There was, I don't know, Professor Michael Diamond, Andrew Stephen, Keith Wheat, Paul Polman. And we proudly really sent out that first announcement of the first 5 speakers. And boy, did we get slapped in the face. They said, well, you know, you have such big words about inclusion and diversity. And look at this, you're 5 white men older than 50 years old. And that was so true. So I think even on a personal point, it starts with just awareness and consciousness. And indeed, that use that basis for for guiding action and indeed helping to address this.
That's super powerful, Frank, and congratulations on acting fast. For what it's worth is my history is I come from this small village in Ecuador. It is 50,000 inhabitants today. When I was born, it was smaller than that. And I can guarantee you that if back then you would ask my parents, do you imagine your son sitting one day in Atlanta doing this job with Coca Cola? The answer is impossible. Yeah. So I am the result of opportunities, social justice, equality. So, I need to appreciate that. The reason I'm here is because I had the opportunity that many people today don't have, and that's something that we need to change.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, just because it's funny and I see it, that I have to say hello via the chat from Daniela Mino. Greetings from Ecuador, she's saying. So we have viewers from all over the world at this moment.
Thank you. Cool. And by the way, I'm below 50, so you can take me out of the list of them.
Hey, so I remember very well, Javier, of the 100 CMOs and other growth leaders in our program, the very first session we did, the very first group, you were one of them. And actually you were the very first person that I spoke to in person on the day we gathered for the first time, when we still did offline stuff. And I remember when we started talking, I know we barely had a drink in our hands and we were already knee deep into conversations about how you manage brands, across the globe with such complex portfolios. And in your case, over 200 countries. Well, we really hit it off on that topic. It was clearly a lot of recognition in our experience, you from the trenches and me from studying and consulting in that space for multiple decades. So I want to shift the conversation to that part. And I'm basically going to basically go through how you connect, how you inspire, focus, organize, and build global brand management. So let me start with connecting, because I think that's where it starts. And connecting between global, regional, and local teams, first of all, in my mind, really requires a basis of trust. Without trust, you can't really connect. But one of the things I noticed is that in the relationships between global and local, I often saw analogies with children and their parents. So very young children are entirely dependent. So they'll do everything that mommy and papi says and eat what they want them to eat. But then they grow older and they become independent. So basically everything mom and dad or your parents tell you, you don't want per se, because they say it. And then at some stage you're mature and you become interdependent and you realize that together you're stronger. So I don't know if you recognize that analogy, but in what's your insights? I mean, more than 2 decades with Coca Cola Company in local, regional, and global roles. What is your, let's say, recipe? What's your approach to building to creating and nurturing interdependency, to building, a foundation of trust and then creating interdependencies?
That's a great topic. And where you were speaking, I was already classifying my markets in kids, teens, and adults.
If you want, you can say, by the way, which country is at which stage. I don't know if you really want to do it.
And as you said, the reality is I've gone through all those phases, not only in life, but in my professional life, because I've worked in doing marketing for Coca-Cola. I worked in a country, in a group of countries, in business units. I was the head of the Asia Pacific group doing marketing in Asia Pacific. And I have these global positions. And it's true. And for me, the critical piece is something that you said, is how do you create interdependencies? How do you make it happen? It has to be a thoughtful process. Something I keep repeating in discussions, because you can imagine these discussions are periodic in organizations like Coca-Cola. How do you make that happen? I have this saying that is, you cannot do interdependencies or collaboration by goodwill. You need to have interdependencies by design. You need to design the organization for that to happen. And a couple of ideas. One is, you need to be very thoughtful how you allocate resources. Because basically what you said is this type of markets, they have different level of resources. So yeah. One thing that is true is, if you have a big group of people with money, sitting in Bangladesh, yeah, they will come up with ideas. They will come up with a new brand positioning for Coca-Cola. Yeah. And they really believe they're doing the right thing because they are thinking for their market. So for me, one of the thing is be thoughtful how you allocate resources, people and money. And as you know, scarcity drives creativity, right? That's a fact. I also know that scarcity drives collaboration. So the moment you remove resources, you encourage people to collaborate. So that's number one. The second one, I would say, when you manage global brands, processes matter. And let me explain this is, being super agile, but not coordinated can be very risky for a brand like Coke. Right? Let me give you one little example. Happened to me 3 weeks back. As you can imagine, I wake up in the morning and I have already emails from Asia, Japan, China, the latest new ideas. So my first hour in the morning is, okay, let me check that there's no disaster anywhere, that everything is going well, or that if I need to act on something. And I had this very good proposition from Japan saying, hey, we would like to explore moving our brands label-less. So what about removing all the labels from the brands? That's it's not really a big change in the amount of waste, but it's a good symbolic act, right? We will reduce waste. I say, yeah, that's a good idea, but please don't do alone by yourself next month. Let's talk about that, because of course it has to be coordinated. It's a global brand. So you need to be agile, but you need to be coordinated. On the other way, being coordinated, but taking 3 years to coordinate doesn't work. You lose in the marketplace. Yeah. So my new mantra is coordinated agility. You need to be able to drive coordinated agility. And that, in my perspective, you achieve that when you connect the network, but you keep clear decision rights. Because the problem with networks, if the decision rights are not clear, it can take forever to align a point of view.
We've all seen that, I think.
We've seen that. Sure. So, and the last point is, of course, culture, trust, and you need to reward the right behaviors. And by reward, I mean with money, with promotions, with publicly rewarding people that are working in their interdependency, not independency.
Well, interestingly, the flip side of that is you need to reward great behaviors. So that begs the question, what do you do with people who really don't want to dance? So I remember a CEO of a company that I worked for a long time. At some stage, he, like, in a town hall with everybody, he basically fired the German marketing director, who everybody knew didn't want to play along the global game. And he made it like a very open and public thing, and the message was really clear. If you're not moving with us to shift to a more aligned way of working, there's no place for you in the company. What do you think of that? Do you also believe in punishment as a way, or at least measures when people really display the behaviors you don't want?
Frank, I like a lot of football, and I lived in Brazil for a while. So let me answer with a football analogy. There's this big team in Brazil called Flamengo, which is,
I know them, see them play. Yeah.
And the fans of Flamengo, they are very demanding, of course. So if you are the coach of Flamengo, you can lose one match, and that's going to be okay. Everybody can lose one match. If you lose the second match in a row, the fans are going to start saying, But if you lose 3 matches in a row, probably you're out. Yeah. So my answer is, everyone deserves a second opportunity. Everyone deserves a third opportunity, but everything has a limit. So yeah, I would say after a while you need to act. And as leaders, either you are part of the problem or you are part of the solution. There's no in the middle.
No, got it. Totally like the answer. Inspire, the second of the 5 steps in the wheel, if you will. So aligning, you said 207 countries, right? That you sell Coca-Cola brand, and maybe for Fanta it's a bit less, but it'll be in the
196.
Well, there you go. So I remember at some stage, this was early internet days, and I traveled to Thailand and trying to convince this Thai brand manager to play along on this whole shift toward what we then called interactive marketing. And he said, well, but Frank, in Thailand, the internet is really different. And I mean, the interesting thing is obviously he was right and he also wasn't right. So when you think about that and you think about aligning and inspiring people from more than 190 countries behind one vision, how do you deal there? How do you deal with these convictions that things are different in different places? They simply are, and at the same time, they're not.
And that's interesting. Maybe let me split maybe that into vision and strategy, because they are, of course, they are related, but it's not exactly the same, right? And here's what I'm thinking is, one of the things I've been reflecting, and this is recently, I mean, this crisis has given me the commuting time I'm saving, I'm using to think more and read more. But one of the things I realize is we marketing people, and especially marketing people in a central role for a global organization, somehow we live in the future, right? Somehow, yeah, of course, my job is I need to make the reality to emerge with brutally honesty. We need to see the facts. And my job is not that. My job is not to see the facts. My job is to think 3 years from now, 5 years from now, how I want to see the brands. If it is the CEO of the company, how he wants to see the company. If you are the president of a country, how do you see the country? So in my case is, as a global marketing people, I live into the future. And then my job is to try to paint that future to the organization. So this idea of imagine if. And that, if the quality of the thinking is good, it's not that difficult to engage people behind the vision, right? The discussion is always how to get there. Now, the bridging the present and the future, the strategy piece, that's when people are going to say, yeah, internet might be different. Of course, it's going to happen. Yeah. For that, what I would tell you is, so one thing is the quality of the vision is going to impact the quality of the inspiration. And we as marketing people, we need to live in the future somehow. On the strategies, I think it's important for us to understand what does it mean to do end-to-end brand management. Because sometimes I think we oversimplify the notion of brand management. If you ask me, Javier, who manages the brand Coca-Cola in the Coca Cola Company? And I would say, okay, let's open brand management into the different connecting parts. Because honestly, and let me try to build this, is if I see brand managers as brand design activities, which is understanding consumer insights, deep human values, doing the positioning, the brand architecture, that's one part of the job. Then you have brand development or development activities, which is creating platforms, creating campaigns, creating innovation pipeline, designing communication, designing promotions. We have now a B-App partnership doing some music program globally. Developing that is a lot of work. And then you have the brand activation in the marketplace, which is, okay, what channels, what price packaging, what promotional activity. All those three things you really need to map and have, I would say, two things. One is make sure that you put the best people to do those pieces of work, and the best people could be in different parts of the world, so use networks. When I need to think brand positioning, we don't do that just by the 4 or 5 people sitting in Atlanta. We reach to people in the field and bring them and say, help me think the brand. But then you have networks, but with clear decision rights. I've seen that most often the problems are either because you don't have the best people or because the decision rights are not clear.
Yeah, we're going to talk a bit more about the organized part of global brand management in a little bit. I want to move to the focus part. So aligning priorities, and ultimately so that in whatever, if you're in sparkling or natural juices or whatever category you're in whatever country or market, that ultimately your priorities end up, like in a Christmas tree, end up to the overall global company priorities. And that's also, I mean, it's a little bit forced, but I have one of my institute colleagues, Eva Lindenborg. She would have slapped me if I wouldn't have brought this question, and I wasn't going to, but I saw quite a few people in the Q&A. They all came with this same topic, and the topic is sugar. And we've talked about it in the past, Javier, but I want to link it to this focus, to creating an aligned set of priorities and actions leading to those priorities. So I can understand that on a global scale, and I know you're doing quite a lot to, let's say, fight obesity and too much sugar intake. But in some countries, maybe Mexico, maybe other countries, sugar intake is really, really problematic. And I can see why local brand managers think quite different about pushing, I know, zero calories products than people in Atlanta would like to see. So how do you deal with that? How do you align, and how do you respect, in that sense, what the differences in the market, but you get like a really important topic of like sugar, critical to the future of Coca-Cola, and how you deal with that?
Yeah, let me start with, so let me try to answer the two questions in one. Alignment. Here is and let me again use an analogy. My first profession is a chemical engineer. That's what I studied in undergraduate, and then I did an MBA. There is in chemical engineering, there's something called the thermodynamics, and there's the second law of thermodynamics. And the second law of thermodynamics says that if let alone, the universe tends to entropy, or in other words, if let alone, the universe tends to chaos. And if you want to stop chaos, you need to put a lot of energy to remove chaos. I believe organizations somehow are the same. You know, if let alone, organizations tend to chaos. So alignment is a never-ending exercise, and it requires energy. You need to put energy to do alignment. So don't think that, oh yeah, we will meet in January, align the rest of the year, and let's meet again in December and let's celebrate. It doesn't happen like that. Alignment and calibration is a constant exercise. Yeah, first thing. The second thing I would say is, when you need to align, you need to be thoughtful of the different levels of alignment. To your point about sugar, the decision of reducing the sugar footprint is something that has to be aligned clear and loudly as a belief, right? And it's a belief. We do believe that we need to reduce the sugar footprint of our products. And honestly, you can discuss a little bit that, but after you have that belief, it has to be aligned, and you cannot move to the next stage, which is, okay, what actions do we implement without having the aligned belief? Because otherwise you're going to be discussing again and again and again. So make sure that you align beliefs before you align programs. And when aligning programs, the most important thing is to align the objective of the program rather than the program itself. So what are we trying to achieve? Because I see a lot of times that we lose in the discussions about the how, but I really want to align the what. In the case of sugar is, yes, we want to have less calories per liter of product we sell. And how to do that, we have multiple options depending on the situation of the market. One option is reduce the sugar in the recipe of the product. So using Mexico as an example. In Mexico, we reduce 30% of the sugar of Coca Cola Classic. So in the case of Mexico, we reduce that. Now you could ask me, hey, why don't you do the same in UK? Well, in UK, 60% of the sales of Coca-Cola are already in zero sugar. In Mexico, 3% of the sales are in zero sugar, 3 versus 60. Now, both strategies are okay. We want to reduce sugar in the product, and we want to promote zero sugar products more and more and more. And the third one is we want to promote smaller packages. So, smaller packages, zero sugar. And the last piece of information, the last piece of the strategy is information. And maybe you can see here is we have in every package the amount of calories very visible for consumers. So 4 pillars, but we give markets flexibility of which one to use more depending on the local condition, as long as we are clear on the objectives. So alignment on beliefs, alignment on objectives, and of course, we need to align the metrics. So what are the metrics that we use to track? Yeah, I hope I answered.
Yeah, that's a good answer. It's a very good answer. I just want to make it a little bit more difficult for you.
Please.
Because I think in topics like this, there's in big companies, even in small companies, there will always be people that say we can do more. And others say, well, we got a business to run. And, we're doing quite a bit. We're already adjusting the size. We're actually, for even people without glasses, can read the number of calories. And so pretty proud of what we do. So in the camps, undoubtedly also in Coca-Cola, of the people that feel we need to push harder and we should do much more education, like, I don't know, the drinks industry with Drink Responsibly. Heineken's Drink Responsibly is very dominant in, for example, their soccer sponsorships. Where are you? Are you in the camp that says that you're trying to convince your colleagues to push harder? Or are you more in the camp of, well, I think I'm really proud of what we're achieving, and as long as we're ahead of our competitors, I'm okay?
No. Again, obesity is a real problem, and unless we solve it, I'm not going to be okay. So yes, can we do more? Yes. What I believe is we need to be willing and open to experiment new solutions, but be honest if the solution works or not. So if you ask me, what are we doing? We are putting more marketing dollars behind zero sugar products, and it's working. The zero sugar products in my portfolio, they have been growing double digit for the last 3 years. Last year and the year before, more than 50% of the growth of the brands is coming from zero sugar. So people are moving towards zero sugar. They are drinking less sugar, in fact.
Okay, but is that answering your question, whether you feel that we should actually from tomorrow on double down and do even twice as much? Or are we in the good?
Yeah, and that's going to happen. Yeah.
Okay.
I cannot tell you the plans.
I'll invite you again a year from now. Double down.
We can meet a year from now, and I'm happy to share numbers.
Very good. Hey, I want to talk about, because that's, and I see some of the questions. Carol Ergen also is asking a question about, I think, the most discussed and complex topic in global management, and you referred to it a couple of times: organize, roles and responsibilities. Who gets to decide what? And you spoke a little bit about it. One of the insights that I got from studying many brands in this space is the very fundamental motivation that the clarity on the responsibilities is more important than the breadth of the responsibility. I remember that guy, he was an ex-Procter guy, and he came into a Dutch utilities company as the marketer CMO. And he was deeply frustrated because he said, you know what, I got more budget than I ever had. I can do whatever I want. But the CEO can walk into a post-production meeting and say, I don't like that ad, you need to pull it. He said, whereas in Procter, I got a book this thick with all the things that I couldn't do, but the things that I could do, I actually really, I called the shots. And it was very clear. And ultimately, that was more motivating than that unclarity. So Carol asked, for example, who decides on the decision rights? Who creates those? So what do you do, and how do you do it to create that clarity in Coke? Multidimensional matrix.
Yeah, and I would say, just using the example you provided, that we are somehow in the middle. We are not as structured as Procter, but we are not also as chaotic. And part of that is because we don't allow that to happen. Remember, if let alone the universe would take you to chaos.
Yeah, no, I like that. I won't forget.
we put energy to keep some order, and the reason I'm saying that is because this is a frequent discussion. And one of the things that is happening during this crisis is we had clear priorities, which is protect employees, protect the safety of the supply chain, help the community, and the fourth one is be prepared to merge stronger. And as part of the be prepared to merge stronger, you can imagine that there's a lot of conversation about how do we merge stronger as an organization. By the way, I believe that also applies to individuals. So if we have time, I'll tell you how I am preparing to merge stronger as Javier. But to the business, yes, there's a lot of discussion about how to be stronger in decision making. So who decides the decision making ultimately is the senior leadership team, CEO, COO, Chief Marketing Officer. Yeah, they're going to decide the decision rights. I do believe that decision rights are super important. I said that before, but you mentioned something which is trust. And I also believe that you can not only play on design the hardware, you need also to design the software. And by that I mean is, don't try to manage a company as complex as the Coca Cola Company that has customers, suppliers, bottlers, just by a manual. It's not going to work. Yeah, because in my case, you said, the CEO can come up into the room and challenge your ad. In my case, bottlers do that all the time. our bottlers, they come up and say, oh, I don't like to your campaign. And it's not as easy as to say to a bottler, hey, here's the manual. Look who has the D. Thank you. Thank you for your input. Sit down. It doesn't work like that. You need to be more empathic than that. So we have decision rights that are clear, but we need to build credibility, trust, because that's how life is.
So Kim Whitler is asking a question, and she takes it a step further even, not so much between global and local and the CEO or the C-suite and more junior people, but she says, well, how do you ensure that employees aren't hijacking the brands and using them to communicate their own personal beliefs versus understanding the breadth of your consumers? So those who live in the, let's say, rural or middle Americas, as well as urban big cities, for example. So Gillette with their toxic masculinity is a good example. The employees loved it, but many of their target hated it. How do you manage that? Good question. I like it.
And let me give you one real example that happened to me. I was leading the Brazil team back in 2014, the World Cup, right? And that's the World Cup, the football, the FIFA World Cup in Brazil 2014. And if you remember, this Brazil and Argentina, they have this big rivalry, right? So after Brazil being eliminated by the famous 7-1 from Germany, the next big fear, I would say this fear of Brazilian was, what if Argentina wins the World Cup in Maracanã, Rio de Janeiro? That was like a nightmare that this cannot happen.
Yeah.
And everyone was, 4 days after being defeated by Germany in Brazil, every Brazilian was a German at heart. Like, yeah, go Germany, go. Yeah. So, and end of the match, 1-0 for Germany. And I have people in my team, the ones doing social media, celebrating and saying, yeah, Argentinians, go back home. And I saw that and I said, oh my God, these guys don't remember that we're a global brand, that we stand for universal values, that we we make a lot of money in Argentina, by the way. So it happens, and how do you ensure it doesn't happen? Training. You need to keep training people.
And I guess values, alignment on values again. Ultimately, is I think if you have a really strong culture where you understand that, for example, you don't judge, etc., that this purpose and values give guidance in, let's say, unexpected things. C19. The company with the clearest purpose and the clearest set of values knew best what to do and what not to do. And I think that applies to some of this as well.
Yeah, when it comes to the crisis we are right now, social injustice, I would say, Frank, the thing that is helping me is, again, think how can we help as an organization, as a brand, as Javier? How can we help? And the second thing I'm been thinking is, 10 years from now, I want to be able to look back and say, I was on the right side of the history.
Of course, but who doesn't want that? I mean, that's a bit...
But that's important. That's super important, because that's going to guide what you do today.
Okay, I hear you. I think there are very few people who think I don't care if I look back what I see. But so I think...
No, I don't
the whole problem is, I think, with intention, we judge other people on their behavior and ourselves on our intent.
Right.
That's I think, understanding that people are all well-intended. They think, who wakes up and thinks I'm going to be an a-hole this day? Nobody.
Yeah, what I was trying to say is, when facing decisions, okay, should I speak or not? I try to think, okay, 10 years from now, what if the two decisions are going to put me on the right side? Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah, good, fair. The last in the wheel of global brand management is build, is building capabilities, is ensuring that successes obviously get rolled out very quickly, but at the same time that major failures don't get repeated in other places and with other brands. Sounds very easy. A lot of books have been written on it. Much academies have been put in place. What is the, let's say, unique Coca-Cola way of building capabilities, and what do you see as your own role in that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it is unique or not. We do a lot of benchmarking and we connect a lot with external people to help us, academia. I see a big role for any global group of people, and I'm part of the global group of people, to foster capability and learning, those two things. And they, of course, they are related, but in the case of capability, we do have a central capability team that connects a network of capability managers. So marketing capability is a formal group inside the organization, and they do capability, organization capability. And we have an agenda, and as I said before, we connect with external people to help us nurture and implement the agenda. On the learning part, again, it requires a lot of energy, but it's important. So let me give you 2 examples of things that we do. On the digital transformation agenda, we created a digital platform to be able to identify what's happening in the marketplace, codify and scale. That's what's called the Global Experimentation Platform. So basically, now we have a place where every market that is doing something to advance the digital agenda, it could be e-commerce, it could be B2B2C, D2C, they put there what they're doing, what they learn, and then allows us to go and access information and scale. And more analog way of doing that is we have a routine every 2 weeks. We gather for a morning and provide the markets a forum to share in advance what they're working on in terms of campaigns or programs. So it happens every Tuesday, every 2 weeks, Tuesday morning. And for example, Japan would come and say, hey, we are working on this campaign. And they would present the campaign for the objective of we providing feedback. But this is important. We don't remove the decision rights from the Japan team unless there is a big problem. If there is a big problem, I'll use the veto power. But usually we don't use that. We encourage the markets to make decisions, and that's a forum for feedback from the center, but also other markets can see what Japan is doing. And that's a way of promoting learning. I've been advocating to create a failure award in Coca-Cola, but we haven't done that yet. I would like to create something that's called the
That's exactly where I wanted to go. That's exactly where I wanted to go, because and that's I think what you should do, and you do, is you talk about what you learned and how you applied it to make things better, like for example now in building those capabilities. But I know from the viewers that they are more interested in the things that you fail at than the things that go well. And I think marketers, in general, always like to talk about their successes. And I'm all with you about failure. In the leadership program, we have just done with almost 100 CMOs a simple exercise where people share a failure with each other in groups of 2. And the interesting feedback of all 100 was not only it was great to share the failure and liberating, but actually hearing from somebody else who shares a failure increase the respect for the other. So I want to give you the opportunity for the viewers to increase their respect for you. No, right. But seriously, so maybe you can tell a little bit about things you did wrong or that are not going well, that you're struggling with. In, for example, the area of capability building, because it's not easy, we all know.
And Frank, I'll answer the question, but let me complement something on your comment, which is, it's not only important to identify the failure and what did we learn, it's even more important to go back and say why we made the decisions we made. Because what happens in this failure, and I've been in a lot of those sessions that you encourage markets, okay, give me your failure, and then they come and present to you the case, and they explain exactly why what you did is so wrong. And it makes a lot of sense, right? And you say, yeah, of course, that was stupid, of course. But then the question is, why did you make that decision back then? What made you make that decision? Because if you don't identify that, you will not really progress. You're gonna keep repeating failures and explaining the failures instead of really solving the root cause of how the decision was made. Now,
can you give an example?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you an example. Coke Energy. We launched Coke Energy in Europe, the first market. And we made the decision to go with one taste profile. It was a taste profile that is a combination of Coca Cola and energy drinks in the middle. And after we launched and we went to the market, and we realized this is not the taste profile that's going to be winner. So we quickly adjusted and launched in US a second version of Coke Energy with a different taste profile. And guess what? 70 plus repeat rates. People love it and it's working. So of course, when I had to go back to CEO, CMO and say, yeah, let me explain what's happening. You know, this taste is much better than this. And people say, yeah, of course. And I say, yeah, hold on. Why did we launch this flavor then? Because it cannot be that we were super stupid and now we are super smart, right? So I did this presentation for them saying, let me remind you how and why we made this decision. Yeah. And that was eye-opening. And I'm not gonna tell that because that's confidential. But
yeah. Well, and obviously I respect that. And well, let's see how you wanna take the next question from, and I think it's a pity because the viewer who posed this question keeps anonymous. So for all we know, he or she works with Pepsi. What do you think about Pepsi's sparkling strategy?
I truly respect my competitors. And the reason I respect my competitors is because I know that behind those brands are people like me that are passionate, smart, well-intended. So absolutely so. I'm not going to answer the question for confidentiality reasons, okay. But I can tell you that I respect my competitors.
Okay. So one other thing is actually I completely forgot that question, but that is intriguing. So we talked a lot about, and we just wrote an article on the Da Vinci Growth CMO. You're a CMO and you carry the CMO title yourself. Now, Coke has made some interesting moves when it comes to the CMO title and the CMO person announcement, because at some stage you basically put a chief growth officer in place. That's been undone. So can you tell me a little bit what's the learning there?
Yeah, we have 3 CMOs now. We went from 0 to 3 because I have a peer of mine that is the CMO for the steel portfolio for all the non-sparkling brands. And our boss has the CMO.
But you don't have a chief growth officer anymore.
We don't have a growth
officer there.
And Frank, this is a good point. Let me put this way. And I've been doing marketing for so many years. So the way I think about marketing is always in these terms of why, what, and how. Right? I keep reminding myself why you need marketing. Why you need marketing. And my answer is you need marketing because marketing is the function in the organization that does the interface between people and the resources of the organization. Our job is to understand people needs, unmet needs, unexpressed needs, try to design solutions, and then orchestrate how those solutions go to them. So we create value and we capture value. So I call marketing the value interchange orchestrator. We need to create this interchange of value.
It's marketing language.
Marketing language. What marketing? Drive growth. That's my job. And it has to be sustainable and it has to be profitable. That's my job, growth. How do you drive growth in a CPG? More users, more frequency, more money per transaction, right? I need more people drinking my products more frequently and willing to pay more money for what they buy. That's how you drive growth. The how marketing keeps changing because the environment is dynamic, competitors are dynamic, channels, online retail, experience, all of that is changing and changing. And that's where you need experimentation. Let the market experiment on that and be smart in learning and scaling. So the short answer for me is marketing equals growth.
Great. Oh man, I wish we had booked 2 hours for this one. Unfortunately, we only have 1 minute left. I want to close, but not before sharing Amy Woodbridge's question. And she's asking, and you've got 30 seconds to answer that. What is keeping you up at night and what's keeping you awake at night? But I would add, and what's getting you up in the morning?
I have found my personal purpose, and that's helping young people achieve dreams and ambitions. Oh, nice. So in the morning when I wake up, I start by thinking how I'm going to help my kids do that. But I've been spending a lot of time connecting with universities and organizations. I did that yesterday, 100 high school students from Georgia, and I spent an hour talking to them about how to think about career and life. So that keeps me up in the morning with energy and passion. And of course, I do that also in my own organization. What keeps me awake at night, I would say, as a father of kids, same as other father of kids. And in the actual context, yeah, I'm concerned about I'm concerned about the impact this is going to have in the economy in the microeconomy, in the economy of families. We are privileged. We know that. There's a lot of people suffering out there. That keeps me awake at night these days.
Great. Well, Javier, I want to thank you. This is called the Humanizing Growth Series. I felt you speak very much from the heart, a very human conversation. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank all the viewers. Not before saying, though, that next week I will be talking with Mark Reed. And we're going to talk about Mark Reed, the CEO of WPP. And we're going to talk about growth transformations or transformations for growth. With that, I wish everybody a fantastic weekend. Thanks again, Javier, and see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.